hello, dear viewers and our listeners. Welcome to another episode of NorthStar. I'm Jignesh along with my co host Rikin, and we are here to share learnings from seasoned sales professionals and leaders and help founders to successfully scale their startups and help young professionals to build a successful sales career. Hey, Rikin, who do we have as our guest and what we are learning today?
Thanks, Ignesh. Today we are joined by John Jensen. He's a veteran technology sales leader with more than 30 years of experience across analytics, BI, AI, and enterprise software. From being an early leader at Tableau during the rise of modern BI to scaling teams at Alteryx and Gong, and now helping organizations bridge the gap between AI pilots and real world deployment. John has been at the center of all important technology shifts that have happened. Uh, Welcome, John. Excited to have you on this podcast.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Great. So, jumping on to the first part, John, the real reason 95% of AI pilots fail, and that's the research that has come across. What would you say? What is the real reason for these startups or these AI analytics failing currently at this juncture, where everyone just talks about AI, but we see the ROI is minimal.
Yeah, that's a ball of yarn to unravel right there. There's a lot of reasons. One of the common things that we see, we won't talk about our successes just at was what failures that we see out there, is that there is a massive disconnect between outcomes and science projects. A lot of folks are doing science project evaluations. Like it's almost like it was one of two things. They almost forgot how to evaluate software because, this is AI, and so we're going to move faster and just try stuff and play rather than have gates, or they've over-engineered it and they're evaluating it like they would evaluate SAP. It's not that rigid, and it's not that established. You've got to kind of be able to navigate between the two, move fast, but with purpose. We see there's just a lot of lack of understanding. What's the outcome we want? They just want to be in a game. They heard from 5 levels above them they need to do this and do it now. And so that I call it feigned urgency, because what's the urgency? You're not trying to solve a problem or an outcome. That's going to hit a red wall, even if they've got an innovation budget. Well, you're going to buy a little deal. You're not going to do it right. You're not going to deploy it right. And it's not going to be successful. That's the general reason. The other reason is that until recently, the technology wasn't there. So you really had to have an extremely well-baked approach as a provider. Almost like a little bit of services blended in with a product. And, the fact of the matter is, in AI, there's been this massive awakening in the last, call it, 12 months. 4 years ago, when we first put a semantic layer on top of an LLM, on top of OpenAI's ChatGPT, we were mocked. People were like, that's stupid. You guys are stupid. These LLMs are amazing. Well, they are, but they are wildly hallucinogenic. Yeah. I mean, they're all over the map, right? So over the last 4 years, we've switched our belief. We're going more to a text-to-SQL model with a semantic rigidity as the foundation, but not its only way of doing things. And so what you've seen, this awakening, is that everyone's realizing that if you treat AI like you treated BI, you've already lost.
Yeah.
And there's still a large organizations, especially, going, well, we got to get our semantic layer perfect and the context layer perfect. Everything's going to be perfect before we go. The answer needs to match perfectly. And the reality is, these AI LLMs are able to answer questions you were never able to answer before with Tableau, Cognos, Business Objects, Click. The list goes on. So trying to match the numbers is also a fool's errand, because those numbers ought to come from a place of not perfection either. Are we getting the insights and the outcomes we need to move the needle? And I think that is the disconnect.
I also feel a lot of companies are getting into this FOMO, fear of missing out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If they don't deploy AI, I don't know however they want, but if they don't, they miss the bus. They are effectively going to lose the market share.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then that's the other kind of theme that we've seen erupt in the last 6 months. About 6 months ago, these LLMs got crazy smart. And if you play with Claude or even GPT, it's frightening what
Yeah.
Claude can do. Now, what you've got now is kind of a, hey, do we do it ourselves? People used to say build. It's not really build. It's, do I do it ourselves with one of these LLMs and kind of just do some light development? Or do we go buy a platform that's engineered for this? And I think that's really kind of the major kind of OS moment that's going on right now.
Yeah. Over to you, Jignesh.
Perfect. No, that makes complete sense, John. And John, of course, you have turned around underperforming, regions multiple times, right? What's the first thing you look to fix?
It's funny. I got branded. I remember Ellen Bryan, who ran talent at Tableau. She once said to me, I was at headquarters, she goes, "We call you the fix it guy." I'm like, okay, that's cool, I guess. She goes, "How do you do it?" She asked me the question. I said, well, it starts with the narrative in people's heads. I've taken two established regions over, both in the South. And then I took one over in the Northeast. I took over New York, New Jersey. I took over the South for Tableau and the South for Alteryx. And all three of those business units were underperforming. Reasons weren't the same, but the commonality was that the narrative in people's heads was, oh, my territory's too tight. It's too small. I have a bad patch. My customers don't understand the value and these types of things. And you just got to dig in and see, like, what are people's beliefs? And the first thing I look for is if after some modulation and some conversation and some seeking this mutually understand each other, if people don't believe, they shouldn't be on my team. So that's the first thing I do right away. Is they don't believe in the company, they don't believe in the problem we're solving, they don't believe in the infrastructure and support they're getting, and they're just a negative egg, out. Then you work with the people that aren't performing, but should be and could be. And you help them figure out where's the gap for them personally. And I think the thing I learned early on, I was a really early sales leader. I was 27 when I was made a VP of sales the first time. I was not ready. But what I had was a gift. I had a CEO who loved me like his own son and said, I'm gonna protect you behind the scenes. I'm gonna hire a consulting firm that trains people how to be a CEO. And they're gonna walk with you 2 days a week. They go to every meeting. They're going to be in every one of your staff meetings. Like, literally, they're going to shadow you, and they're going to tell you what you suck at, and they're going to tell you what you're doing well.
Amazing.
And that was it. It was a great gift because I got 5 to 10 years of experience in 1 year at age 27. I was running a $57 million P&L at age 27 for the second largest PeopleSoft practice in the world, other than Accenture's.
Wow.
Don't know how I got there, but I didn't mess it up.
Great.
How about the people that aren't performing? I have, as a leader, other leaders out there, you're going to empathize with this. As a leader, I can't tell you how many times I've been told by the new guy, as coming in as a new guy, the guy above me that hired me or 2 levels above him, hey, you need to get rid of this guy and that gal and this person and that person. I never listened to that, ever. And I am proud to say I was explicitly instructed to exit 2 people I can think of right off the bat. One of them was one of my VPs that reported to me at Tableau, and I refused to do it because I wanted to form my own judgment. Another startup, which I actually ended up getting exited from because the CRO and I didn't see eye to eye, he told me to get rid of another guy. That guy's the best performer in that business 3 years later. And that VP that they wanted me to get rid of when I came and took over the South at Tableau was last man standing, and he was the one guy I always trusted to give me the truth. So if people aren't performing, you then have to figure out why, what's holding them back. And I also learned early on, you can't hire a bunch of your likenesses. Like, I, as a rep, love the prospect. I have something wrong with me. I love the prospect. And pipe gen is really important to me. And I'm not going to be able to hire a bunch of people to feel the same way as I do. I just want them to not be afraid of the telephone. Now, if they're afraid of the telephone, we got a problem, right? But they might be great at closing or great at presenting or great at solution formulation. I always ask people, what's your superpower? At the front, because you can't be all. Is your superpower the front, middle, or back of the funnel? It's really interesting what people will tell you. Doesn't mean they suck at closing if they say I'm really good at the middle. But then you dig into like, what's the hardest for you and why, and how could I help you get better, or do people on the team help you get better? It's not always just me.
Yeah, it completely makes sense. So it's basically like a puzzle which you are trying to solve.
100%.
Everyone has their own strengths, and you are bringing them
Yeah,
together, showcasing their strengths, and they elevate themselves.
that's a great analogy. It is a puzzle, and none of the two puzzles look alike. There's some pieces you've seen before, but there's always a surprise. It's like a Cracker Jack box. There's always a surprise at the bottom. You just don't know if it's a tattoo or a toy.
Yeah. Amazing. And at Tableau, as you mentioned, Tableau as well as Alteryx, what separates winning enterprise teams?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, I think one of the things I learned at Tableau, and I've never experienced anything like it except Alteryx was close, is that just a sales culture. Most technology companies have a dominant culture. It's a technology culture or it's a sales culture. And at Tableau, it was a sales culture. At Alteryx, it was absolutely a sales culture because our CEO and co-founder was a sales guy and loved salespeople. And we had a saying at Tableau. There's only 2 jobs at Tableau. And you had a T-shirt. When we had company events, you wore one color T-shirt or the other color. I sell Tableau. I make Tableau. That's it.
That's it. Oh.
Finance helps sell Tableau. For instance, they wore sell Tableau shirts, not make. Development word make. 2 jobs. That's it. And I think that's a hard thing to create if you don't have a founder or a CEO who's deeply sales focused. It's always going to go. A lot of you see it in AI, especially it revolves around engineering, and that's great because the engineering is super hard. But I really believe you've got to be that clear with your vision. You make it or you sell it. There's no other job.
Perfectly. So laser focused, I believe that helps Tableau to actually scale.
Yeah. And then I'll say this. Where Tableau started to go sideways, and it's going to sound shocking and appalling to some of those Medic gurus out there going to watch this. I love Medic. I was at PTC for a short period of time when Medic was being created by John McMahon and company. But I think Medic has been over-engineered and over-put in the hearts and minds of sellers and made them robotic. It's a qualification framework. It's not a reason for being, and it's not your whole life. It's just a compass. And some sales leaders just rotate on process overly. And I think for me, my kryptonite is an organization that is like intergalactic account plans that just end up on a hard drive or a Google Drive somewhere and never get looked at much once they got built. And it takes them a month to build them. This is where we went sideways to Tableau. We bought this product called Altify. We went hardcore account planning, and we needed to do that because we were winging it a little bit. But you can over-rotate. And so I think the other success thing is blending people with processes. I think the thing that most sales leaders are forgetting right now that I see that are younger and up and coming and are so process-oriented, people are feeling machines first, and they're thinking machines second. And that is a direct quote from my mentor, Barry Sauerwein, who I've worked for 3 times around the Tableau Salesforce. And it's something that in the age of AI, people are forgetting about. And I've got a book over here I need to reread on my shelf called Beat the Bots by Anita Nielsen. She wrote it 5 years ago. She's like, the bots are coming. The only thing that can save you is your humanity.
Absolutely. People buy from people. And people buy from, the people whom they like.
Yeah.
So it would be there,
I'm going to argue that point.
50 years.
I'm going to argue that point. I think in an AI post-COVID world, people don't necessarily buy from people they like anymore. That was the 90s when you could golf with them and you could have a burger and you could go a nice meal and have a glass of wine. Those days are over. People buy from people they trust and feel are competent. I will buy from a competent seller over one I want to yuck it up with and he loves the Cowboys like I do any day, and he might be a little bit of a jerk.
Yeah.
But he's sharp and he knows what he's talking about, and I know he's going to guide me to making the right decision. I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, no, completely makes sense. Completely makes sense. 100%.
What was the 90s sale look like? What did the 2000s bring in? What did change? Once everyone had like AI in their pocket, how did that change? What were the patterns, and what made people successful?
Well, I think, okay, that's from that standpoint. Obviously, the relationships are less important.
Oh,
Competency is way up.
Hmm.
I think with AI, one of the things I see, and I've even gotten a couple on my current team for this a little bit. You want to make me go show up on a call. Hey, where are you calling in from? I should know that you're in Bombay. I should
hmm,
know that you're in Manila or Stockholm or Des Moines. I should go to your LinkedIn profile. In fact, I am a big believer in Humantic.ai. There's another product called Crystal Nose that does the same thing,
Yeah.
but it's a plugin for LinkedIn that tells me what your personality type is, roughly speaking. It's not to be perfect,
Yeah.
especially if someone used AI to build their profile, but it does more than just your profile. But I want to know, like, how's this person wired? Am I going to talk to a Seymour who just wants to see a bunch of stuff? I mean, I talk to someone who is a driver, like,
hmm,
and so I think what you're seeing is that the pattern is shifting, that really good reps in SaaS now aren't overusing AI, but they're using AI smartly. They're using AI to prepare.
hmm.
They're using AI to follow up with person in the loop refinement. Once that follow up is written, they don't let it just go. They customize it.
Yeah, that's an interesting take in which things are shaping up.
Yeah.
Now just navigating towards winning enterprise deals, right? You've been winning enterprise deals so far, and that's what you're known for in the market. Why do you see that large deals get stalled, even when there is a strong
Mm,
interest at the start?
yeah. Well, this is something that hasn't changed. So we talk about patterns that are changing and patterns that
Yeah.
aren't. And no, I'm very deferential to the medic crowd because I love medic, but I also critical of those who just. This is a place where the medic folks are listening. Wait, right on, JJ. Champion, man. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is from Andy White, and it basically goes like this: If there's no pain, if there's no problem, there's no pain. If there's no pain, there's no champion. If there's no champion, or there's no urgency. If there's no urgency, there's no champion. If there's no champion, there's no budget. What are you doing here? Like,
Hmm.
Yeah.
it all comes down to champions and these really bigger organizations. You have to find someone loves your stuff, and that's pretty easy when you've got great tech. You got to find someone who loves your stuff, and this is a lesson I learned at PTC when Medic was being created, that will pass a litmus test. I don't hear this a lot anymore in the Medic community. I was there when it was like created. So if your champion, quotation marks, cannot have the quotation marks removed by being tested, they're not champion. And a test is, hey, Ricky, I need you to go get a meeting with Jignesh, and I know that he's many levels above you, but we've got to get his perspective on this, because if we miss and we think we know exactly what the outcomes are that he's driving to, we don't hear it from him directly, we're gonna be in trouble. A lot of the medic people make it about the budget. We need to go talk to him so we can get the money approved. That is very self-serving. There's a lot better talk track to get to where you need to get, was mutual success on the project. Because a lot of these lower level people that are doing these evaluations are scared in their shoes to go talk to the guy 2 levels above them without it. And if it's about budget, that feels gross to them because they're not used to working with budget. So you've got to make it make sense. You've got to make it for them. I always tell my guys, what's in it for them? Always be thinking of them, not me. Same with the mutual action plans. I've seen a lot of reps. Oh, my boss told me I need to do this thing so that we stay on track. No, we need to do this together, Jignesh, because if we don't, there's a lot of details we need to manage. And we want to do a professional job of showing the leadership team that we know what we're doing collectively. So it's very important that we map these steps out. And if you don't know the answers to some of them, that's okay. But those are highlighted points that we need to work together to find the answer.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to put it. And the code that you mentioned about, the entire process, what the hell are you doing here?
What the hell are you
It's
doing here?
something which, yeah, it's a goal. Just moving on to the next part. How do you sell to execs who don't trust the data yet?
That's funny because we had a really important cycle happen a couple months ago, and it stalled. And we just got notification they're going to move forward with us, and we're going to sign a contract on the 27th of June. This was that exact scenario. There's a convenience store. that has a multitude of ERPs that they've acquired and tried to blend together. So the data has been a challenge. They've been
Mm-hmm.
using Click and some other kind of SQL-based, report generators for years.
Yeah.
And we did a pilot and showed them that they could do things like a neural network market basket analysis, which there was only one company on the planet that did really good market basket analysis, and that was MicroStrategy, now known as Strategy. And for about $4 million in 2 years, you too could have a market basket analysis, right?
Yeah.
12 minutes with Claude as the model working inside of our platform, which guarantees the accuracy and all the other things that people want. So it blew their minds, right? But we wrote to them, well, but the cigarettes with the Coke, well, that data is not accurate with the donuts. And like, guys, your data is not right yet. You have to see the forest through the trees. You have to see the opportunity to change how you make decisions. And so that I don't trust the data comes from two places. Systemically, they've had a problem there, or it comes out of the AI is wildly different from what their system is that they do trust. Yeah. And so one of the things that we've seen now, I bet a lot of AI sellers out there are kind of going, oh, JJ, high five on that one. We're trying to educate people that those Click or Tableau or Power BI answers they've been running the business off of today, what says they're accurate? If you're trying to get accuracy to accuracy, it's a fool's errand. You're never going to do it. Your Tableau system didn't tie back to your SAP system perfectly. It's never perfect. So what you've got to do is you got to say, can I do more? Can I do it faster? And will that propel the business forward faster, less drag, fewer people, fewer processes, better outcomes? If the answer is yes to all or most of those, you should trust the data.
True.
Now, we have some I'm speaking generally, we have ways that we do that as a vendor that are very unique, but those are the generic answers to that. I think a lot of people are trying to play perfect matchy-matchy with their old system to their AI system, and that is really foolish. It's almost impossible. Because these LLMs they're 10 times smart. No, they're 100 times smarter than that system you built with SQL tools. Maybe 1,000 times.
Yeah, and this is very valuable because not everything is going to fit, and you have to take decisions in ambiguity, even if there is some bit of probability, like 80,
you have to embrace ambiguity, Ricken. I mean, that's a great point.
Exactly, and one of my managers used to tell me that, Ricken, 80% is a good probability to have. It's still it means you're 80% right, and that's fine. And taking a deeper step onto this winning enterprise deals, right? How does a great account planning look like? How do you get into an account? How do you scale that up? How do you actually see to it that after maybe your entire sales cycle, this is going to convert, because it's a multi-million-dollar deal that we're talking about here?
There's two types of account plans. There's account plans, fresh, breaking the door, and then there's an expand plan.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the expand plan first. One of the things that I think is really important, and I did at Alteryx, which kind of blew a lot of people's minds, and man, with AI now, I can imagine how easy it would be to do, which was a penetration matrix on where are our seats, where are our users, who's happiest, and where are the most of them. It's just a color gradient. It went from dark blue to red hot. We're ice cold in finance. We're lukewarm in operations. We got 3 users, and we've got 8 users in marketing, and we're red hot. So look at just where am I? Who's who in the zoo? Then who can I leverage to go grow? Obviously, whether it's expand or land, you need a strong POV. I think POV-led selling is really important. A lot of organizations have been training on that over the last probably 5 years, kind of, especially as challenger sales started to kind of take root, and it succeeded in some places and failed in others because it's fairly complex. A POV. What's your POV for this account? Now, we might have an overall POV for the industry and what we do, but you have a POV for that account, maybe a couple based on things that are going on in their business, not your business. One of my favorite sales trainers is no longer with us, was Skip Miller. And it's like, it's all about them, not you. It's not about the dog, is what he'd say. You're the dog. It's not about the dog. Don't stop barking, stop wolfing, is what he'd say. So, I think some account plans are over-engineered. I think one thing that's missing from a lot that I see today is a good old-fashioned org chart with colors and flags. Yellow,
Yeah.
we're not quite sure. They think they're a problem. Gray, I have no idea. Red, this guy's an issue or gal's an issue, and a blocker. I used to always say at Informatica, who's the data diva or who's the data czar in the organization? They can't say yes, but they can say no to everything. You got to find out who that person is if you're selling any kind of technology. But a map of who's who and where are they and who have we yet to get to. And then another thing called a penetration matrix, which is here's all the people in the account that we know, constellation of value that would be valuable to get a meeting with. And this is in Excel, and I'm sure there's software that can do it now in some CRMs. But what is our status of getting to them? Do they believe what we believe? Are they green? We got to them and they believe what we believe. Agreed. Yeah. If we got to them and they don't believe what we believe, they're yellow. If we haven't gotten to them yet, they're black. Okay. If we don't know who they are, that cell is white, and that says we need to go do some research or ask daisy chaining questions of other folks. I don't see a lot of people taking their account plan, which is what I'm going to do, and mapping it up to what am I actively doing now. And I think that penetration matrix made most of my reps hate me for a short period of time, but the ones that used it made their numbers. Because I wasn't just give me an account plan, because we did it at Tableau and it was abysmal. I mean, some people spent 40 hours on one plan for one account. The CEO, the VP of sales looked at it and went to garbage. It was not used heavily since then because it didn't have a mechanism for using it during the fight, during the battle. It was a battle plan that says, here's what we're going to do. Well, things go wrong in the middle of the battle. Yeah. So what's going on in the middle of the battle? I haven't seen a lot of account plans take that into account.
Interesting. And that's a unique way, because I've not seen this happening where the penetration is so deep. Who's the data diva, data czar. It's an interesting take. And I see you talk a lot in binaries. Either it's a yes, either it's a no. Either it's a seller or either they are a maker. And that's a unique insight or unique way of seeing in sales.
It might be a lot of my personality, frankly. I'm an acquired taste for some. But those watching this podcast yourselves, I mean, go look at my LinkedIn profile. I interviewed with the former CRO of LinkedIn, and he goes, I've never seen someone so loved by so many people, so many different age groups across so many disciplines. Yeah. I have 107 people that said I changed their life. And it's not because I go at things soft. It's not because there's any ambiguity with me. It is black and white oftentimes. What's not black and white is people. People get the gray. People get the gray.
Because I'm in recruitment now, so tell me about it. People are gray.
Yes. And you have to have, I have this philosophy that I lead with love. And it's this. If I love you more than you love yourself, you won't work with me very long. If I love sales more than you love sales, you won't work with me very long.
Okay.
If you don't love yourself, we won't work together very long. But I love you.
Yeah, that's an amazing insight.
But you need to love what you do. You need to love where you're doing it and who you're doing it with. A lot of people watching this podcast are probably too young to know a guy, Jack Welch. Jack Welch was one of the most successful CEOs in the history of the world. He ran GE. And at the time, GE was in like 80 different businesses. And they were number one or number two in 60 plus of them. And his philosophy was, we're not number 1, 2, or 3 in any business we're in, whether it's leasing refrigerators or making missiles. We sell that business and we get out of it. Okay. And he once became friends with the founder of Sun Microsystems, who created Java. And they went and played golf. And Fortune magazine interviewed Scott McNeely, who was being tutored by Jack Welch, and said, what did you learn from Jack? You've spent so much time. He goes, tons of stuff. I learned one thing. It'll never leave my body. If you don't love who you work with and love where you do it, you have a bad life, because you spend more time there, virtually or not, than you do sleeping in your own bed with your own family. That's a reality for everybody out there in tech sales. If you don't love what you're doing and where you're doing it and who you're doing it with, go do something else.
Profound. Pretty profound. Okay. Talking again about, the mistakes, right? So what are the biggest mistakes enterprise sales teams make, John?
The biggest one will come back to champion. I can't tell you how often, and this drove me nuts at Tableau. Some of our more senior leaders who had never been through Medic, but like kind of knew kind of what term champion meant. They, well, you're champion, you're champion, champion. It's like, no. There's supporters, there's cheerleaders, there's people that are favorable toward us. A champion's a special breed. It's someone willing to inflict harm on themselves to advance the deal because they believe it's as good for them as it is for you. And if someone doesn't pass that litmus test, that is the biggest mistake I see, is everyone calls the people that like them and like their tech and help them maybe get a meeting, the champion. You got to pass a litmus test. That getting that meeting might have not been hard. You got to find something that's hard for them. And if they're willing to do the hard stuff, then they're a champion. It all starts there, frankly. Yeah. That's the biggest mistake enterprise sales teams make. And then I think the other one that I've seen, and you relearn some of these lessons, is managing your sales stages across your key decision makers. So your economic buyer, your technical buyer, your user buyer, for instance. My user buyer freaking loves us. It's great. He's so happy. He's a gusher. He's just gushing all the time. It's so wonderful. And the technical buyer is bought in. We've passed the tech review. He's good. He's all right. Yeah. So he's green. But economic buyer, we met with him like 2 months ago when we first kicked off the pilot, and we haven't done a good job of trumpeting back to him and giving him status reports. I see that mistake a lot. I've seen that with my own team quite a few times. We meet with the person in power that's going to sign the check, move the paper. They also are going to probably be a user. They're excited about what could be. They get in one meeting where we show what was built. They like that, but we never confirm back with them. Are they on the same sheet of music as the technical buyer and the user buyer, who are very effusive? Are those guys like stage 4 just making decision, and is our EB still stage 2 pilot? That's one I relearned just recently. We thought we had this deal because all of the users, the technical users, they were all bought in. The economic buyer had some concerns because he met with 4 or 5 other companies and had some FUD in his head. We hadn't confirmed he was at the same gate as everybody else. So it delayed the deal. Eventually lost.
Would building an ROI metrics for the economic buyer early on, would that help John to get his buy-in?
There's a thorny one. I think people are ROI'd out. I just think, and now with AI, you can build a damn good ROI calculator literally in 4 minutes with Lovable. It's better than anything you ever built in Excel. I think the cost of inaction is the thing you need to drill into more now. And I think the payback, an ROI calculator, no one ever believes them. So what I think you're on the right track though. What you do need to know is you need to know, what is the overall charter for the outcome we're trying to get? What is the outcome? No one knows what the outcome is. Stop. What are you doing here? Andy White. Is the outcome revenue focused, margin focused, risk focused, or cost takeout focused?
Yeah.
That is a familiar cousin of margins, but explicitly, are we trying to take cost out? We hear this a lot. We don't want to get rid of people, but we want to get rid of the 6 slated hires we have for next quarter. Okay, no problem. That's cost takeout, right? Margin improvement might be improving efficiencies. Revenue is obvious. Risk is obvious. But you've got to know what that is and what's the cost of inaction that affects that outcome and the metric. I think the metrics are key. So champions and metrics are really, really key. A lot of sales teams make the mistake of not collecting. How are you going to measure your success? And again, sophomoric, junior people go, oh, what metrics are you trying to drive? No. Hey, Rickon, like if we were successful here, how would you know you succeeded? Like, how would you measure that success? What would you measure it against? And who would care most about that measure, and who would maybe argue with you about it? That opens up a whole conversation versus we're just trying to increase revenue. Then you have to ask the next question, and they feel like it's a CIA interrogation.
The art of questioning and probing is, I feel, very hard skill to learn, and it's a most important skill because
It
you
is.
can ask the same element in a very different way, and
You
the
can.
person can open up like a like anything, and then it just becomes
Yeah,
like a good entry point into your setup.
you're 100% right. And, and a lot of it starts with tone. I could ask you the
Yeah,
same question with different rising and lowering intonation and get it and elicit an answer, whereas I just ask it in monotone, probably going to get no answer or a fluffy answer.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Mm.
I think the other thing too in discovery is self-deprecation goes a long way. A little,
Okay.
hey, you're going to hate me, Rick, but I can't do a good job of mastering the universe of outcomes for you if I don't have some basic knowledge. So if this starts feeling like a CIA interrogation, please let me know. But we do need to have a little bit of a dialogue before I open up the software and do the demo, so I know what to show you, because there's so many things I could do and so many
Yeah.
directions I could go in that if I just don't get a couple of baselines from you, I'm probably going to bore you. Is that fair?
That is one
But
of the most killer statements that I've heard. And I know if I was sitting across you at the table, I would just start yapping. And
Yeah,
that's insane. It's insanely good. I'm gonna clip this out, save it differently, and
right
maybe
on.
record it, listen it a couple of more times.
Just remember, it's always about them. And
Yeah.
I think discovery, especially a lot of younger reps, it's nails on a chalkboard. It's just like it's all about them. It's their script, and you can tell their boss's boss told me to do this, and you call it medic. I'm going to medic you now. No one wants to get medicked.
Yeah.
One more mistake. Medic's really important. It's a framework for qualifying whether
yeah.
something's real or not. You can't get all those answers in the first call. You come across like a total jackass.
Yeah.
You have to build on it. But what you have to do is go prepared to each of your calls. Okay, this call, I see a lot of guys making this mistake too, guys and gals. Plan your calls.
Mm.
It doesn't mean have an outline of 8 questions, but have what's the outcome you're looking for? This is where spin selling is really good.
Yeah.
What's the outcome you're looking for? And did you advance the deal? At the end, did you stay where you are, or did you advance, or did you regress?
Mm. Mm.
And
Yeah.
go in that call with like the top 2 things you need to get out of that to feel comfortable to keep going. Not the 5 or 10, 2 or 3.
It's true.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense. And of course, as enterprise deals take a long time, right? Sometimes up to a year as well. You have seen this multiple times. You have coached people multiple
Yeah.
times. How do you create urgency uh, in that situation, right? In a
Oh
longer
boy,
sales
the
cycle.
urgency question. This is one I've had so many conversations, especially young sellers, including my amazing go-to-market leader I have at Zenlytic. You cannot create urgency. You can't manufacture it. You can manufacture a little bit with like discounts in the quarter if you buy. Now, this hot take, Todd Capone out there teaches people how to negotiate. I've been doing this since 05. I called him one day. I said, I've been doing this since 05. He goes, you should have read the book first. I said, you're right. I should have read the book first. When I give discounts to create moderate urgency, I do it if you buy earlier in the quarter, not at the end of the quarter.
Mm.
Hey, the discount gets lesser as the quarter goes on. Just a little side note. But the urgency, Skip Miller used to call it an I date. By what date, Ricken, do you need to have a workable AI solution in place, given that you said, your CEO, so this is a board level mandate. Mandates are not blankets. Mandates usually come with expectations of a horizon of time. Do you have a specific date by which you need to have something working?
Makes
If
sense.
someone doesn't have a date in mind, it's really hard to create urgency. And so what you need to do is keep asking questions to find a date they might not be aware of. Maybe there's a regulatory compliance issue. Maybe that CEO said in a quote, within the next 9 months, we need to have this up and running. Well, there's your date. But your lower level person didn't know that. So you got to do your homework and you got to ask people lots of questions. Are there any dependencies on this that if you don't get that thing done, you can't do the next thing? That you can create urgency from.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's, again,
Perfect.
that wasn't about me, was it? It was about me and my deal and my budget getting in by the 30th of
It's
June.
always
Wow.
about them.
It's always about them. And you have to get them to think sometimes, well, there is no date. Are you sure? It's okay to say that. Are you
Yeah.
sure? Because this sounds like it's coming from on high. Is that right? Yeah. I don't know a CFO or a VP of operations worth his or her salt that doesn't give timeline expectations. What might be a good question, because we're going to need to meet with that person before we kick off the project. That'd be probably a good question for us to mutually ask. What do you think?
Mm. Again, a very well way to put it. You're not offending anyone, but at the
No,
same time, empowering them to ask that question in the next meeting, right?
that's right.
Uh, and what separates the deal that just closes and the deal that forever stays in your pipeline?
Yeah, it still comes back to, do you know the I date? Is there urgency? If there's no
Hmm.
urgency, Andy White, if there's no urgency, there's probably no pain. There's no pain, there's no problem. Right now, what are you doing there? Right now,
Yeah.
we've closed business with no I dates. So the more important apex predator on that kind of food chain is the champion and outcomes. Were you able to help that customer in your pilot, in your POC process, whatever you proof of value? Were you able to demonstrate demonstrably, like clearly, a delta between the status quo and where they want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and then a technical delta between what the other favored solutions or in-house incumbent does versus what you do? But that oftentimes means you'll get the deal, but you're not going to get it as quickly as you want.
Hmm.
You're not going to have that speed to closure that you want 99% of the time if you don't have some dependency understanding about what's going on in their world and what negative consequences happen if they keep going down the path they're going or don't change their trajectory. If someone up high said, go do this, someone up high has an idea of what they want the world to look like soon.
Hmm.
We have to define what soon is, and we have to, more importantly, define what does that vision look like and get to that person who holds the vision, or is it extremely close to the person who holds the vision? Maybe sometimes we're not always going to get to the CEO, but maybe we need to get to the VP of Ops or the CLO or the CFO who's carrying that mission for them. What you don't want to do, metaphorically speaking, is deal with the supervisor all the time, pretending we're in a skyscraper and we're renting a skyscraper, and we
Yeah.
always deal with the supervisor. We want to talk to the owner occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well put. A nice analogy.
Yeah.
Moving to this AI adoption reality, right? I think in the last couple of quarters, things have shaken quite a bit with AI. Everyone just thinks of AI. Every
Yeah.
company is, Ricken.ai, Jignesh.ai, John.ai, and they feel that they are new kid at the block. Why does still AI fail in the last mile? Why does it still fail in the decision making? Or, when uh, there are implementations done, there are use cases in sales, but they still fail.
Well, it's largely been because the technology wasn't quite there and the expectations and the technology weren't well mapped. Lately, the technology has gotten there, but not everyone's using the technology that's there today. So like they might still be using Gemini. Gemini is nowhere near Claude. They might be using ChatGPT extensively, nowhere near Claude. Now that could change in another 6 months. Someone could leapfrog the next guy. But there's been massive, massive change here in the last 6 months. The big thing is the outcome still. If people are just trying the technology to do cool shit, pardon my French, you've already lost because they all do cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's what's the delta and what are you trying to accomplish? For instance, I use Claude extensively instead of GPT if I want to do design work on competitive PDFs. Just head and shoulders above. I know that because I've experimented. But people that don't know these things, they just go with the first shiny thing they see because it's better than what they were doing manually before, but it might pale in comparison to the better option.
True.
And there's just a lot of confusion out there. There's just AI, they call it AI slop. There's a lot of AI slop out there right now.
True. I think there's a mismatch between the expectation of what the AI can do and when the output is, it's very similar across everyone, right? Everyone who knows how to use a Claude or a Chat GPT, it's a human element that makes the difference at the end of the day also, and how smartly you played the bet.
Yeah.
And what should companies do differently to move from, say, a pilot to a production? Or what should companies do differently to ensure that this AI that they are trying to build, or this direction that they have gone into, doesn't fail at the end of the day?
Uh, they need to come up with an evaluation process that doesn't look like their old process, but isn't just geared on showing me a shiny object. I think they need to decide what are the couple of things that are most important to us, and how do we get the vendors to demonstrate the delta between our current state or their competitors A and B and themselves, and be very clear in the use cases about what is the use case, what is the outcome, what does good, better, best look like. We see a lot of naivety, frankly, around explainability as an example. Explainability, and I always like to use humor. So I always tell prospects, you should get the cross out because Dracula's after you. If you hear the vendor say, "Oh," and if you doubt the validity of the numbers, just look at the sequel. Let me ask you, Rick, how many business people in your company do you know how to write SQL?
Yeah. None, actually.
Right? So
Yeah.
you have to listen. I try to teach prospects, you have to listen for things that should scare you. And one of the things that should scare you in the age of AI is if a vendor says, "Oh, you can just look at the SQL code to validate the answer." Is your user the data team? No, we're talking to CFO. Dude, you've already lost, bro.
Yeah.
That's not a good answer. That is not explainable. Explainable is a Fisher-Price UI that shows a non-technical user, here's how I got to the answer. You can trust it. It's green. It's got check mark. And most of the solutions out there right now have not picked up on that very obvious cue, because it's such technical stuff. It's really nerdy. AI is really the apex of nerdy technology.
Yeah.
It is. But because the interface is my voice, people that aren't nerdy and aren't technical don't appreciate how much work is going into this stuff. And that's the other challenge, is executives who don't understand what is required to build these systems and make them give accurate answers consistently. It all looks the same to them. All the demos look the same. And so one of the litmus tests, you might talk about litmus tests for champion. Here's your litmus test for vendors. If they say, and you can look at the SQL, and you're trying to empower and adopt a non-technical user team, that is not your buddy. That vendor is not your friend. That will not help you. If that's their mindset, that's what comes out of their mouth. They talk about making sure things are accurate. Hey, buddy, you already lost.
Yeah. No, valid point. So it's an how easy it is to explain a non-technical portion, and that's what companies can do differently to
how easy is it for a
AI.
non-technical person to decipher how the answer was derived?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Moving to the most exciting session of the podcast, the rapid fire. Quick 1 or 2 words of answers for every question, John.
Okay.
Biggest deal you have closed in your career?
That would be about a $15 million deal at American Airlines to manage their website back just after 9/11. We were competing against Mark Andreessen. Horowitz. And we beat Mark Andreessen. Myself, we were a 90-person company, and we beat Loud Cloud for that business, and we also beat Carly Fiona, who was the HP CEO at the time. So that was one I'm most proud of.
Amazing.
We were just
your bank would have broken with the incentive on that deal. On a lighter note.
And
unfortunately, I was the general manager for the region, but I was doing all the selling, so I didn't get the big commission check. The sales guy did.
Nice.
Bought a new house.
Indeed. And what has been the toughest loss, if any?
Yeah, I remember this one like it's yesterday. It was hotels.com. It was 2004. And I was told by my VP to respond to this RFP. And remember Andy White, no champion? What are you doing there?
Yeah.
The consulting firm that wrote the RFP only implemented Essential Software, which is IBM. They'd never done an Informatica deal. They didn't want anything to do with us because our technology worked better and didn't require the amount of services. And I told them, this is a fool's errand. We should not be doing this. And I had a broken arm at the time, so I was typing with one hand. Yeah, I put over 40 hours in responding to this RFP, went to one meeting, and it was obvious I walked in the meeting that we were column fodder. So if you don't have a champion, get the heck out of there or find one quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
What habit would you do every day that has a massive impact on your sales performance?
Prospecting, period. I've got a calendar, even as the SVP of sales right here, and I put a little green dot for every hour I spend prospecting. And as an AE, I was a big believer in Jeb Blunt, his first book, Fanatical Prospecting. And his premise there is whatever you choose to do today from a pipe gen perspective doesn't matter. Dot, for 90 days. 90 days from now, what you chose to do on this Thursday, the 11th of June, will matter. Same thing for the 12th of June and the 13th of June. So 90 days out, it'll matter, but it won't matter for a while. So if you can string a bunch of good days together and do it consistently, you'll be okay, even if you're not good at it.
Again, a mind-blowing way of putting sales, John. This is absolutely gold. Let me take the next question. One myth about AI in sales that you believe in.
One myth about AI in sales. I think all of it is a myth at times. I think people overuse it in some cases. I don't know. That's a hard one. I mean,
We can pass
I
it.
use it a lot. Yeah, I use it a lot. Team uses it a lot. I do see where sometimes maybe even in an RFP question, I over relied on it the other day. So I think the myth is that it's not an elixir; it's a helper.
Yeah. One open-ended question, John, that I sort of wanted to pick your brain on is, if you were an AE right now and you were given a region or a patch or a certain segment, how will you go about being successful, and how will you go about building teams also?
Well, if I was an AE right now, this is where I would use AI extensively, and I do it extensively for my research. I mean, this is where like the penetration matrix approach and stuff I've taught my whole career. Reps hated it because all that was manual, and you do a lot of typing. And frankly, you spend your first 3 weeks in January when you get your new plan and your new quota, just planning. I think you can do that in 2 to 3 days now, extensively. With AI. I mean, you could do it all in one day to get your baseline, and you can check everything. So that's the first thing I do is I would use AI to create a really robust, not account, we'll call it account plan, but understanding who's who in the zoo, formulating my POV, formulating where they've got challenges and we can close those gaps, etc.
How will you build teams around? As you become more successful, you'll have to have teams under you also. So how will you find out the good people? What are some things that you would definitely see in a first hire, second hire, third hire? Because then the culture, of course, goes on.
It doesn't matter whether they're first hire, second hire, 10th hire. I look for people, like I said, I'm not trying to hire me, but I am hiring what I value. If they don't have displayed grit in their life and in their career, it's the first thing I look for is just stick-to-itiveness. There are a lot of people that worked for Microsoft and ServiceNow and maybe Click. Their whole career worked for 3 companies, and they just got there at the right time, and they made a bunch of money, and they had the right accounts, and they had the inertia and power of this brand behind them, and they think they're better than they are. I am turned off by hiring people that have only worked for big companies. I want people that have struggled with no one knows who we are.
Yeah.
And how do they get meetings? How do they close deals? No brand. I mean, how does an 18-person company compete against Anthropic, for instance? Well, you know what? Someone can do that and they can win even part of the time. They're special. And so I look for that grit. And I had the hardest sales interview I've ever been given was at Informatica in 2004. Greg Keene, and I do this now in my interviews, and whenever I can do it in person, it's very powerful in person. I give you a whiteboard pen. I say, you're familiar with stock market, right, Ricken? Stock chart. Up,
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
Draw me a stock chart of your life or career, your choice.
Okay. That's an interesting way of
Wow.
showing a
And
journey.
what you do is a couple of things. And I remember him asking me at the end, why do you think I did that? I said, well, I think you're trying to figure out, can I tell a story? Have I been through adversity? How have I handled that adversity? And past behavior is the best predictor of future. He goes, nailed it. That's exactly right. And in this today's HR world, especially United States, you have to give people the choice. Look, you can share personal if you want. So give me a stock chart of your career. But if you'd like to include your life and career together, all the better.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Golden
Yeah.
nuggets. These are golden nuggets.
John,
It's a fun one.
this is one of the most interesting answers. I mean, you've given so many interesting, but this is also one of the most interesting things that you've said. So this actually brings us to the end of our podcast. Thank you so much, John, for
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
taking time out.